Catherine.
Hi, Luciana. Can you hear me okay?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hold on a second here. Okay, that's better. How are you doing?
Uh, it's been one of those days.
It's been one of those weeks, hasn't it?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So,
You know,
welcome,
yes, welcome.
welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us or watching us later. But today our topic was child trafficking can begin at birth.
Right, right. And what better way to start than to remind those who are creating this issue of Matthew 16, 18:6. If anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea.
Amen.
So we always like to remind those who need to hear that of the Word of God, and particularly those who are steadfastly ignoring it.
Correct.
So,
We have
yeah.
we have Gloria here in the firmament too.
Oh,
Let's,
is she? I don't see her. Oh, there
Hi,
she
Gloria.
is. Hi, Gloria.
Hi.
How are ya? It's good
Good.
to
How are
see
you guys
you.
doing? Good to
It's
see you
always
too.
good to see you.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, because I know that this had been a topic that was near and dear to your heart, Gloria. And of course, we shouldn't ignore the issue, controversial though it be, that it actually, the trafficking can start before birth. And uh, yeah, and many, many of the unborn, never get to have a life because of the abortion lobby and so forth. I hope that saying that word doesn't get us banned, but it is. I don't termination of pregnancy. Maybe that would be a euphemism more to the liking of the YouTube gang. In any case, it it seems like there's no aspect of our existence that cannot be monetized. So, yeah,
You mean
um,
merchandised?
yeah, merchandise, yes. So, I wanted to get into also the pretexts under which this trafficking can start. And of course, the big one is the so-called child protection system racket, that's corporate. And apparently, I think, Luciana, you were telling me this the other day, they have offices
Yeah.
now in hospitals.
CPS offices in the hospitals already.
Yeah. So they're poised, ready to pounce. They don't have to go very far. They don't have to actually drive across town to steal a child. They can just walk across the hall and do it, or take an elevator, whatever they do. Um, I wanted to mention too. I don't know if you want to bring this up as a nice visual. The CPS people in Arizona. Arizona happens to be a state that is even more, consumed with child trafficking than a lot at a rate that seems to lead the nation for whatever reason. And
Arizona, you said, right?
Arizona,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And if you can connect us to those pink professional kidnapper shirts, so everybody can see what these CPS agents proudly were displaying in an unusual display of honesty about what they are and who they are.
Oh.
Did,
Hold on a second. Sorry.
okay. apparently they were reprimanded by it. We can't have honesty, among our employees and agents and contractors. But they were. I saw it for the first time, I think, on Facebook. That there was about I don't know, about 8 of them, and they were all just in a line, and they all wore the same pink shirt, um, saying "professional kidnappers," and
Was there a
there
picture?
was a photo. Yeah, there's a photo if you scroll down.
Okay. Um,
There was. You keep going.
yeah, I'm at the bottom.
Yeah,
It
maybe you
looks
have to.
it looks like it's supposed to show up here, but it's not coming in. Hmm.
Huh.
Hmm.
Maybe you have to. Yeah, okay, there's the article.
Yeah.
They call their CPS agency DCS. Apparently fired over professional kidnapper T-shirts,
Wow.
and you might have to click on that to get the image to show up.
Yeah, it's strange. It's
So,
not coming up now. Uh,
okay.
I don't know.
It says professional kidnapper on the front, and then it says, "Do you know where your child is?" on the back.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay. Can you see it here? Hold on. I'm sorry. Let's see. Let's try this way. Can you see it?
yeah, there's a shot of the front of the shirt. Not a shot of, but there are shots of a bunch of them, posing, and they're just grinning from ear to ear as they wear this.
Huh.
And these are child protection agency
Yes,
people?
yeah, professional kidnappers,
How
and they
did they
think
get
it.
their job, I wonder? How did they
They
qualify
got
for it?
a degree in social work, I think. I don't think it takes much more than that. They generally hire people who are not parents to do that. And young people
Wow.
oftentimes.
That's
When did
funny.
this? Yeah, I know. When did this come out?
Oh, this came out at least 4 or 5 years ago, three or
Oh,
four years
really?
ago in Arizona.
Huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
there were photographs of the women wearing this all over Facebook for quite a while.
Wow.
Yep. Um, they're proud of what they do.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I've watched some people do like live broadcasts or Facebook streams or something where they're talking to the public and seeing people actually comment on there saying that they work with social services and they should to have their child they should see about having their child taken away for going against a norm or something. That's what they'll say. Oh, maybe you need to get your kids taken away. you
Well,
know
one of the grounds is often dirty dishes in the sink. That
hmm
can be a reason to take your child, right?
there was another case where a CPS worker popped in when the mother had removed all the sheets from the bed and she was doing all the laundry, all the sheets, and the kids were taken away because the CPS worker stated that there was not proper bedding on the beds for the children. Even though she explained that she was washing the sheets, she could show her. Can you believe this?
No.
Yes, I'm afraid that I do. It doesn't. They don't have to have a reason.
Now, what did they
Yeah.
do with these children after they take them?
They put them in foster care, and they love to choose foster parents that with criminal records that have a child sexual abuse issues, um, that are drug addicts and that are just doing the fostering for the income.
For money, yeah. That's very
There's some
true.
statistics out there that children who are removed are generally only there's only cause, arguably cause 20% of the time. So 80% of the time there's no grounds. But yes, I understand that some children should be removed from abusive parents, but the question is, who's going to do it? Who's going to do it? Should it be maybe a common law group in a common law court in the community, or should it be somebody who are working, as everybody should be, I think, I mean, if you care about your community, you're going to support it up close and personal. You're not gonna pay somebody who's gonna wear a professional kidnapper shirt and think it's funny,
Yeah.
to deal with serious issues of disrupting a family.
or
And
or or a business like CBS who has a history of no accountability when a child turns up dead. You know,
right,
yeah,
right.
here in Ohio, children that have been taken from birth,
Mhm.
or not, some not even after they were a couple years old, taken from the parents for any reason, and next thing you know, with the foster parent, child ends up dead. And with the newborns, a lot of times they say, "Oh, it was what is that?
Sudden death, sudden infant death.
Sudden infant death,
What is it?
sudden infant death, where they die from in their
Oh,
sleep, or
yeah. That has pretty well been tracked to the what.
yeah,
Um, they didn't used to have that, but the thing is, of course, these CPS agencies are actually private for-profit corporations, like everything else in the so-called government is. And they admit in their case law, if you can pull up DeShaney versus Winnebago DSS, this was a case, I think, from Wisconsin, where 1989, their United States Supreme Court decided that even though there was every reason to believe that a child was at risk, one child, I think, in the family had already been killed, and they were going to leave the other children there. Part of the children that actually you would think should be removed generally are not. It's only the children that will later be adoptable that are not being abused who are removed. But the so-called United States Supreme Court decided in DeShaney that there was no duty on the part of the entity, CPS, to protect children. So what are they there for? If they
yeah,
have no duty to protect, just like the private code and corporate code enforcers, who we call law enforcement officers, just as they also have been determined at the highest levels in their system, they have no duty to protect. Well, what are they there for?
Well, that's in their name,
It's in
right?
the name, but
Child protection.
yeah, but they're there for revenue generation. There's they keep that they get compensated through Title 4D, and I'm no expert on what that statute involves, through various federal contracts. The more children that they remove, the more federal funding they get. So it's in their financial interest to remove as many as possible, particularly adoptable children or children who can otherwise turn a profit. I remember one matter that um, the CPS worker told the judge, and of course, there's no right to jury trial, even in their system, when they take a child, saying, "Oh, please, judge, we need this one. He's so charming." What?
Mm.
What does that mean?
Mm.
Well, I read
And
a story where they brought the parents to the nursery and told them to pick out one, choose which one they wanted.
Oh my gosh.
And then they
oh,
told,
prospective adoptive parents?
yes. And then they
Yeah.
told the mom
Mm.
that the baby died.
Oh God.
There are, this is a massive story. It's been going on for years, and it's in all countries, and it's just
Mhm.
an adoption baby, selling babies. That's what they're doing. What they've been
Yes.
doing.
Yeah, well, they know it's a big money making business to provide
Mm-hmm.
a child either to an infertile woman
Mm-hmm.
or to, unfortunately, someone that has a child that needs an organ, or they'll die. And they will find a child, they will find an organ, and make big money doing it. These are big money items.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't found the link, but I know I saw this because it's one of those things you can't unsee once you've seen it. It was some sort of a facility apparently, and there were women standing at a conveyor belt, and it was connected to a termination of pregnancy center, and they were it, I I can hardly even say it, but I mean has to be said. These these dead infants were coming down the conveyor belt, and they were decapitating them and separating them out, the bodies from the heads, and throwing them in a bin. Yeah.
Well, they have found mass graves at those industrial schools,
Yeah.
especially in Ireland, Australia, Canada, here in the
Mhm.
United States,
Yeah.
where these children die in their custody and they just throw them into an unmarked grave.
Jesus.
Over in Ireland, they found them in a cesspool. It was filled with baby
Where
carcasses.
was this, in Ireland?
Yes, in Ireland.
Mhm.
So because they're having to sell these schools, and so when the buyer goes in there, they're finding these mass graves in there. It's terrible. There's just untold amounts of babies that have died in their custody, and they've been mistreated, and they either die from neglect or abuse,
Mhm.
and the
Mhm.
same entities are found to be taking care of them, which are the
Yeah.
priests and the nuns, the Roman Catholic Church.
Yes.
They have
I'm not surprised.
orphanages and industrial schools for the. I've got a list of countries here where
Okay.
this. Well, we've got Poland, Portugal, Spain, Serbia, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, Philippines, Canada, Australia, Ireland, Britain, and America. And that's probably a short list. It's global.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
And it's really heartbreaking. I've spent all day looking at it, and the evidence is massive.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
They all
Um,
need to be arrested.
well, who would arrest them though? They're because they've already got the plan figured out. That's why they have control. There's a relatively small group of criminals who are doing this. They get accomplices from the general public,
Mm-hmm.
um, who young people who can be persuaded to participate in this for a price, for a paycheck.
Yeah.
And there's even after the latest pharmaceutical genocide that we're only seeing part of now. There, um, there's only about maybe 8 to 10,000 of them, of the so-called elites, and millions, billions of us. Um, they aim to cut our numbers down, obviously, and this has been a tactic of so-called warfare, or really mass murder, for centuries. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Millennia,
the
really.
Uh,
forever.
back
Yeah,
in back in 2015, I guess there was an article put out where there was a secret video. Somebody videotaped somebody at Planned Parenthood, well, more than once, and about their criminal conspiracy to make money off of aborted baby parts. And that video got out.
oh yeah, it was a Planned Parenthood woman.
Executives, yeah.
Yeah, and she was negotiating at lunch, amid sips of wine at the
Hmm.
restaurant, over prices of livers and hearts and brains and you name it.
Jeez.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah, it's a 3 hour long video. I'm not, I think, I don't know. It's, I'm not going to play it. We could put it in we could put it in the links if people want to watch it. Yeah, this is really happening. It's been happening. It's been happening.
So, have you heard of the Magdalene laundries?
What
no,
is it called?
what's
The Magdalene
Ma-
laundries. They have had those over in Ireland, and it's kind of a home for unwed mothers. So they would put the girls who got pregnant, put them in these homes. They end up in the laundry room doing the laundry, slave labor. When they have their babies, they're taken away from them and
yeah,
adopted out. And a lot
right,
of them were sold to come over here to America. And so these women just lost their babies. And they spend the rest of their life looking for them.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
just one small example.
I remember in the 50s that uh, it was, of course, very, very disgraceful to be pregnant out of wedlock. And there would be homes called the Florence Crittenden homes. And I don't know who Florence Crittenden was, but that was where girls in trouble would go and have their babies and then presumably be adopted out. And when you're 16, 17, you're probably considered not competent to give consent or not consent to the adoption, and they just take them. They do
Yeah.
extract some sort of a signature, I think, first. Then they do talk them into, oh, this will be so much better for the child. Think of the child. Think of how you need to get back to school and back to your life, and they talk them into it. They tell them it's okay. It's really unselfish of them to do, and then they have their whole lifetime to regret it.
Mm-hmm. It leaves a hole in your heart.
Yeah.
Hmm. Now there are others that are where now that the stigma off of um, giving birth without a father figure has been removed, there are women that are have their baby stolen in the hospital based on some kind of a history, for example, of and I've seen couples have their child stolen right out of their homes. Um, they've created whole medical subspecialties of fake forms of child abuse, and one of them arises when there's a family history of it's a genetic defect called osteogenesis imperfecta, and I think an article on that with PubMed if you want to bother trying to find that, Luciana.
Which
But
one is it?
it's PubMed, PUBMED.NCBI
Yeah.
NLM, and it talks about this. In fact, one of the people in Ohio who's dithering around about whether or not to be on our court, um, she has a family history of osteogenesis imperfecta. So what that means is it's brittle bones, and children tend to, if they're given any kind of X-rays or they have the slightest injury, they fall. It's very easy for their bones to break,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's been a fertile field for CPS corporations to say, see, brittle bones, or not brittle bones, because they won't recognize that.
Abuse. Abuse. Child
Abuse,
abuse. Yeah.
yeah, child abuse, and there was a doctor. Um, uh, no, there was a Dr. Thogmartin, Thogmartin, that um, that came to the rescue of a man, a father, David Long, who in 1999 had been charged with first-degree murder in his daughter's death based on an autopsy performed by a Dr. Joan Wood. I don't know how much time he served falsely, but Dr. Thogmartin, this is another type of pretend syndrome. It wasn't an accusation of broken bones. It was an accusation of shaken baby syndrome. That shaken baby syndrome became very trendy in the 1990s and maybe a little bit earlier.
Hmm.
And not to say that babies should ever be shaken, of course, but they wanted to suggest that it was possible to shake a baby even slightly, and that the telltale sign of of shaken baby syndrome would be retinal hemorrhaging, and and often that would come about, with a fall or something like that. And what happens, what Dr. Martin found was that he was a coroner, and he found that what was going on was they would rush to judgment in the ER with the child, and the child may have actually died, and they would see what they would claim that there was retinal hemorrhaging, and and Dr. Thogmartin was able to prove medically that you can't tell that until after death, and you remove the eyes, and then he was able to establish there had never been any retinal hemorrhaging. They had misdiagnosed, and which is apparently very common, so that all the other medical people would jump on the bandwagon and conclude, oh yes, this is a shaken baby syndrome case. And and even though it turned out to be a lie, people like to hang on to their cherished lies, especially when they jump to this conclusion early on and they have a lot of support for it. But finally, I guess Dr. Throckmorton was able to get the evidence in front of David Long's attorney, and he was finally released. But I mean, it just uh, goes to show, because I've seen this in other cases still to this day, where they're just making snap judgments about shaken baby syndrome, or child abuse based on broken bones when the bones were brittle and that was medically documented, because it provides yet another ground so that they can the CPS agency can do some more virtue signaling, which is kind of weird. Why virtue signal about your duty to protect when you don't have a duty to protect? But people don't connect that, well, wait a minute, if they have no duty to protect, then what are they doing in the house anyway? Why are they making these judgment calls? These are people that aren't even medical people. They're shooting from the hip, and they're working for a profit-making venture that gets federal money if they decide that there's abuse. It's in their financial interest, and they get bonuses individually as employees for every child that they remove. So how do you think they're going to come up? What conclusions do you think they're going to come to?
Yeah, when there's a financial incentive.
Yeah. What is that? Title IV? Is it Title IV funding, Catherine?
Title 4D. Roman numeral 4D.
Yep. Title 4D. And yes, they do get funding and grants and bonuses for every child they take. And the longer they keep a child in a foster home or in the state's care, the more money they make.
Ka-ching, ka-ching. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's in the CPS or social workers' financial interest to find something wrong with a parent, to find anything at all.
Mm-hmm. And they, of course, they remove first, and I would say ask questions later. Only those questions never get asked, and they certainly never get answered.
Yeah. That's the problem. They remove first and ask questions later.
If that even.
Yeah. And of course, Gloria, you know the story about former Senator Nancy Schaefer, right?
No, I haven't heard that one.
Former Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer was exposing CPS. And then she lost her job as a senator and was found dead shortly in her home not long after. Her and her husband, and they called it a murder-suicide, although they had a wonderful relationship. But coincidentally, after she exposed the crimes of CPS and what's really going on.
She was a state senator, I think, or a U.S. senator from Georgia.
Georgia senator.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
and then shortly after that, there was another senator who picked up the torch. A woman, what was her name? Oh gosh, I can't think. I'll find it. She started exposing CPS and wanted investigations and stuff done. She was found murdered in her home. Another senator. So you wonder why when these things happen, your child's taken and you complain to the FBI, you complain to your senator, your different people in your county, the police, and nobody does anything.
Yeah.
Look what's happening to the people who do. They end up dead because it's a multi-billion, trillion-dollar business.
What a figure I found today was $32 billion a year figure. Business.
And federal money that goes to CPS.
They didn't say. They just said it's a $32 billion business.
Oh God.
Well, there's different forms of the trafficking. And
I saw there was I just now found another it's a 7-minute YouTube video where an attorney claims that babies were being sold right out of the St. Louis hospital parking lot.
oh wow,
Yeah. Do you want to see that?
sure.
Yeah. Hold on. This is just horrific and it's happening.
And of course, nobody asks questions as to who is buying these babies or what the
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah.
There's a film out now that apparently is selling. Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Do you want me to play it?
Sure.
Listen to this.
Missouri, gateway to the West. But it's the floodgates that are about to open here with more force than the mighty Mississippi. Renowned gospel singer Zella Jackson Price suspects the city has been keeping a 50-year-old secret.
The Zella Price story is causing women to come forward questioning whether they were lied to when told their babies died at Homer G. Phillips Hospital.
All sparked by her moving reunion, where she thought had died 5 decades ago.
You can't tell me that one child who miraculously showed up 50 years later was the full extent and scope of the exploitation that was in place.
How many women would you guess contacted you?
We're approaching 150 women with incredible stories.
After zeroing in on those stories, Watkins goes on to make a raging allegation, brazenly pointing the finger at that hospital, Homer G. Phillips.
The place to buy it was Homer G, and babies were being sold out of the parking lot. It was pay for play, cash on delivery.
And Watkins is ready to take on the city, one still battered and reeling from the unrest in nearby Ferguson.
I can hold her baby up, Exhibit A, and you tell me a jury in the city of St. Louis going to listen to this gospel singer that everybody knows and look at this beautiful baby Diana. They're going to give her the arch, the stadium. They'll give her the damn state. This is wrong, and we owe it to every one of these women.
So many women who have come out of the woodwork in the wake of publicity brought on by Zella's case.
They want to know if a St. Louis hospital stole their newborns and sold them.
The day we visited Watkins' office, here's the scene we found. One anxious woman after another, all with the same searing question. Could my child still be alive?
As these women began to file in here, what kinds of emotions did you see?
They weren't here to garner sympathy or tears from some skinny little white attorney from the suburbs. They were here to get answers.
How many of you delivered children at Homer G. Phillips? Did any of you ever give up this feeling inside that maybe your baby might be alive? Never?
Never. And it's been difficulty for me because I didn't get a chance to take and see my baby walk for the first time. I did not get a chance to take her to school for the first day. And they just took my baby. And I want my baby back.
They have opened up wounds.
Otha Brand was just 15 at the time she gave birth, and like Zella says, she never held her baby in her arms.
You know, when a mother holds a child, there's contact. And I might have started questioning things, maybe if I didn't know that child.
Well, Catherine, yeah, you see what's going on here, you know?
Yeah. This
is just one hospital in St. Louis where all these women, emerged and said, wait, that happened to me too, and that happened to me too.
Right.
There's millions. It's the same scenario. No
Mm-hmm.
matter what age, and I'm talking about the 50s, the 60s.
And now be careful, new mothers, if you take your because your favorite pediatrician, who you think is your friend and helping keep your baby healthy, that baby gets found at times. I'm not saying every pediatrician. A lot of times, a pediatrician, if that baby is underweight, and you don't bring that baby's weight up immediately by the next doctor visit, guess what? They're going to take
failure to thrive.
They will take the child and into state custody and decide that, and put it in a foster home and decide, well, the state's now going to decide, what he eats. He needs this shot. He needs this vaccine. Maybe he's not eating because you're breastfeeding. We're going to start giving him a bottle or whatever we decide, and bring his weight up just for the baby being underweight. They're going to find this is a reason to take your child.
Well, they don't seem to understand that some weight loss is normal during the first week of life after birth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they'll take it as a sign of pathology because they're either ignorant or they're being willfully ignorant. They're playing stupid.
No, it's because they want that money that's coming in from the government.
Yeah,
funding.
Right.
There's another. Oh, and they love to mess with families that have multiple children involved, because if there's an issue with one child, they say they have to take all the children until they fix this one issue with the one child.
And when they take multiple children, although the federal guidelines say that they're supposed to do everything they can to keep them together and keep them with a relative, they routinely don't do that because, again, of money. Yeah. They'll get more if they farm out 4 kids to 4 different homes than if they place the 4 together so that they at least have support from each other. They can't have that.
And the scary thing with the older children, like the teenagers, if they take a teenager, right, a 13 or something year old, that teenager goes to a foster home. If that child is taken by a child trafficker, trafficked to another state, sold as a sex slave, okay, to many different men, the state, CPS, police will tell you this is just a situation of a runaway. We don't know where she is. She ran away. She ran away from the foster home. We'll find her. Don't worry. They know.
Well, some do run away. They run away from abuse.
Yeah.
Right.
But a lot of times they don't run away. They are taken out of that home and transported somewhere else where they are being sold.
One thing I have found is that some of these homes, there was a juvenile psych facility where an 11-year-old that I was advocating for was placed, and she was obviously being groomed. Oh, we're going to take you shopping for clothes.
We're going to buy you a pony.
Yeah, but it was, and then she was also saying that she would wake up outside and not know how she'd gotten there. So I suspect she was being drugged as well. Come to find out that the owner of this group home also owned a trucking company, and that seems to be a common denominator also.
Yeah,
with
trucking and freight companies.
Freight companies, trucking
owning
companies.
homes where the children are being sent to a foster parent, and you look up the home, and it just so happens by somebody who owns a trucking company. I mean, what a coincidence! It's just a coincidence, I'm sure, that several of them happen to fall into this situation.
Well, I'm sure you've heard of Father Flanagan's Boys Town.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
that's still going. That's still
yeah,
going.
those kids have been trucked around, bussed around, and to provide children to. In fact, there was a big scandal in the time of Ronald Reagan that they were taking them to the White House. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it came out in the. Oh no, that was during Bush. It came out on the front page of the New York Times. The call boys
Yes,
being brought
exactly.
to the White House at midnight for a
Yes.
tour of the White House. Somebody at the New York Times dropped the ball because normally New York Times whitewashes everything, but
Yeah.
not this time.
Well, I looked that up, and they have one of those schools in Australia as well, Father Flanagan's. Well, I looked that up, and
There's a woman that is too frightened to even speak anymore. Her children were trafficked to Boys Town from an Ohio court, a fake court, one of the corporate tribunals that call themselves courts. And it was part of the visiting judge racket. And perfectly fit mother, and the father had a history of child porn. And he also, I guess the children had gotten a little bit too old for his taste. So his buddy, the fake corporate so-called judge, shipped him to Boys Town. Yeah.
Jesus.
well, there they have the boys, the laundry, they have the girls, they keep them separate, and they have these schools that everyone thinks they're charitable organizations, and they're not. Baby brokers.
Well, they
And
get the
there's
tax break for that, but
Yeah, there was a
they can
woman
call it whatever
in,
they want.
yeah, there was a woman in Georgia that was kidnapping and selling babies on the black market.
wow.
And then there was another one in
Yes,
Tennessee,
I think I remember that one.
thousands of children.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the private adoption industry. Okay, that takes children from young mothers, or pretty much buys the child because they. This is a situation like what happened with Jennifer Feldman in Florida, and she was raising her daughter's newborn baby when her daughter went behind her back and didn't come home one day and just texted her and said, "You're going to hate me, Mom. I'm not coming back home. I just gave the baby up for adoption," and was paid, obviously paid money for it. There was a lot of shadiness going on. There was not a true home inspection because it said the home inspection was done in Florida, but the parents are in New York. So the child was adopted out of somebody from somebody out in New York. It's a shady business.
Right, right.
Well, the root of all evil is the love of money.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah,
And if this isn't the most evil thing,
yeah. Baby brokers.
look at that.
Yeah, I can put this in the
The
comments
internet
as
is home
well.
to scores of adoption success stories. The baby finds a home, people become parents, everybody wins.
This is the sweetest thing I've ever seen.
But private adoption in the United States is also an extremely lucrative business, with inconsistent regulations and financial incentives that can lead to problems.
You feel gross because you finally figure out how they're buying you or your baby.
When someone stands to make $50,000, $100,000, some people will do a lot of untoward things to make that kind of money, and they do.
Every year, there are about 1 million families looking to adopt a child in the US, and many of those want a baby. Private domestic adoption offers the best chance of finding an infant, but the number of infants placed into new families via private adoption is estimated at less than 18,000.
It's a fundamental problem of supply and demand. and the demand so far outweighs the supply.
That dynamic has helped drive the price of a private adoption into the tens of thousands of dollars. Money that can go to for-profit agencies, facilitators, consultants, attorneys, and any number of other types of private adoption middlemen. Adoption Network Law Center in California charges more than $25,000 in fees. That doesn't even include legal costs and birth mother support, which can be thousands more. Adoption advertiser Chosen Parents is a middleman to middleman of sorts. It charges $18,800 for each new birth mother they find.
We have invited abuse. Anyone that knows or learns the system can exploit those loopholes very easily for financial gain. And there's no oversight. No one is paying attention.
We've got this film out about child trafficking now that's a big box office success, but it's not blowing the whistle on any of the stuff we've been talking about going on
Exactly.
in the United States.
They make it seem like it's just a child trafficking of children over the border or from other countries. It's happening right here through CPS, through our hospitals. And it's just growing. And it's up to us. I mean, there's too many people in the government involved in this nightmare, unfortunately. And we're not just saying that. There's tons of evidence out there, tons of whistleblowers. So you can't, I mean, the FBI isn't going to do anything. Allegedly, they're involved. You know, the governor, the senator, the attorney general, the police.
Incompetent. They can't figure out how the cocaine got into the White House.
Yeah. And explain why. I can't for the life of me understand why so many police officers and it's just a fact are being found with child porn on their computers, on their phones, you know, and it's being exposed. And then you wonder why the police won't do anything when you report something to do with a child that's been taken. It's sad to say, but it's just a fact. I'm not saying all police officers are doing this. Absolutely not saying that. Of course, that would be insane. But there's a growing number that are.
I was just speaking with Dr. Ann Blake Tracy. I hoped she would be on the broadcast, but she's been telling me that these SSRI-inducing drugs, pharmaceuticals, are actually, I mean, it's been known for a long time that they are associated with increased risks of violent, homicidal, and suicidal behavior, but ignoring the suicidal behavior. They're associated statistically, and this was based on a Harvard study by Glenn Mullen back in the 90s, or maybe even the 80s. And he ranks a lot of these pharmaceutical products by the tendency to which they will lead to, they're associated with violent acts more than if, you know, they have a certain percentage, like, you know, there's a certain anti-smoking drug that increases the risk of violence by a factor of, I think, at least 4. So you're 4 times more likely to commit a violent act than if you were taking some other drug. But she's also telling me that the risk of child sexual abuse is going out the roof because of these SSRI drugs also. And of course, child sexual abuse is a form of violence in itself. And she says it's definitely she'll have to tell you, exactly how this works, but we'll have her on one of these times. But I guess my purpose in all this is not so much to expose, oh my gosh, it's so horrible, but to um, focus on the solution, at least the beginning of a solution. We know where the solution does not lie, and it does not lie in the fake corporate tribunals they call courts.
Right.
If it did, we would see something happen. We wouldn't see the increases. They participate in it. They
'Cause they're all
arrange for the transfer of custody to known abusers.
Yep. Yep.
They facilitate these predatory adoptions. Everything we're talking about what's going on in the United States has been trivialized in
Sheriff's Department.
by this big blockbuster movie. What's it? The Sound of Freedom. Sound of Freedom.
Yeah, I've
Yeah.
heard it. I don't think I
Opera-
could watch it.
It's it's about the solution. It's kind of a feel good movie. It's like, don't worry, don't worry. We've got our man Tim Ballard on the job, and he's being funded by Mexican drug lord Carlos Slim. They don't tell you that part though. And members of that family being on the board of BlackRock and associated with the Clinton Foundation, and Tim Ballard is on the Afghanistan World Foundation Relief Board with genocidal architect Henry Kissinger and Dianne Feinstein. What's not to love here? So he's being universally praised by, you're saving children, not children in America now. He had to go all the way to the jungles of South America to find children to rescue. And he had been working for NSA, I understand, but and NSA was a wonderful organization, of course, according to him, but they just couldn't quite do enough. So he had to quit NSA so he could take this on all by himself, because he's such a brave guy and such a good Christian. And but NSA probably could have taken it on, maybe, if we the people had just given NSA more money and more power. Then they could have taken it on too, and we could save more of those poor brown babies. Because after all, it's not going on in the United States of America, so complacent Americans can continue to munch their popcorn and watch the brave Tim Ballard of Operation Underground Railroad be brave and save the world. But for those who want to do something to reduce the risk that their child, their grandchild, is not going to be grabbed, we have a common law solution, at least the beginning of a solution. And I think I sent you it was an attachment, and I don't know if you can display that, Luciana, and that's the same way we address every issue.
Oh,
the
yeah.
the three notice process.
Correct. Okay.
And this was modeled, what you're going to see, after I was approached by a grandmother who got one of those cards in her door from CPS. Her teenage daughter had given birth, and she and the teen, grandmother and mother, were raising the child. Well, of course, CPS didn't think that was maybe quite copacetic, so they there was the card in the door, and there was, I don't know what kind of flimsy allegation there had been, but if you look at the notice, this isn't a vague, nameless evil, folks. This is being perpetrated by people people with names and addresses right in your community.
Exactly.
So, if you look at this notice,
can you see that okay, Catherine? Is that better?
Let me see. Let me get back to that screen. Yes. Yes. And this is what we did. I changed the names, but I changed the names of the people involved, but not the name of the head of CPS in Ross County, Ohio. Why protect her? I mean, she is what she is, and she has that position, and you can see that South Central Ohio Job and Family, if you scroll back up just a little bit, has is a corporation, and it's got a Dun & Bradstreet number, and it also has a fax number, and oftentimes they have email addresses, and then we've also got the worker, and then we generally name anybody who is likely to be at your door, breaking your door down, trying to steal your child or your grandchild,
or assist in stealing
or
the child.
Right.
Oh,
And the people, it's always the same. There's a CPS worker. There's the head of the CPS organization. There's your local police chief and all his underlings, because when you serve the police chief, you've served all the underlings too. And then you've got here we got the so-called sheriff, who's also working for the corporate county. And so among those people, we only had to name 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 people in that instance. And we gave them notification of that they had no authority to be trespassing on the claimant's land, no authority to be inquiring about the welfare of her child or her grandchild. And in the notice, it says that you can see what it says. And so when they stick that card in your door, that's evidence that they have trespassed on your land. Did you invite them? No.
That's right.
So they've trespassed. And, you can charge fees for that. And particularly after you've given them notice, you try it again, and this is how much it's going to cost you. And that's what they care about, is how much it's going to cost them. And
don't you have to put up a no trespassing sign?
It's stronger to do that, but if you serve notice that you're not going to tolerate, see, there's your fee schedule right there. If you scroll up just a little bit, item 4, acts of trespass carry financial charges. This is your notice. If you do this again, your first trespass is going to cost you $1,000. Your second trespass is going to cost you $3,000, and so on. And that's for each man or woman who's working for this trafficking corporation.
Right. And even though these are people that are assisting others, what they're doing many times is carrying out the order of a judge. So in the end, I mean, A lot of times it's a judge who is responsible that
A real judge.
started this
I'm
whole thing
a
because
judge, as our friend calls
I'm
himself.
sorry, you know, because even how can somebody possibly go to a judge with an alleged with a phone call, someone or something they allegedly heard, or an affidavit of what they saw, and before seeing or hearing any evidence, the judge immediately that day signs, it's an emergency, take that kid.
Well, at this
mean,
point, and anytime you're trying to protect yourself, it's a lot more effective if you do it before it gets to that point. In this instance, there was no order yet.
Yeah.
But you start letting the CPS work. They start with the card in the door, the knock at the door.
Oh, so in that case, they just went and left the card in the door. There was no order by judge, nothing. Wow.
No.
So
Now
they
they
were just
don't always start it that way, but 99 times out of 100, if there's a knock at the door, and we've heard this, and we got a phone call that said that, and you start talking to them, they're going to twist everything you said, and then you're going to give them the evidence that they didn't have before. So don't do it. And the thing is, there's no reason for you to cooperate with them. They are not on your side. They are not looking for truth. It's none of their business.
And the thing is also, and we've seen it many times, you can't let them in your door. Okay.
No.
You just can't. Once they cross into your door, you have invited them to find anything in your home to give them a reason to take your child. Anything.
Dirty dishes in the sink.
Right. A half-painted wall. Oh, God. There was a woman who got her children taken away for, she started painting and had not finished. They took her kids and said she could get her kids back when she was done painting the place. I mean, and these were older kids. I mean, this is insane. Don't even get me started. I'm hoping we can get this Ohioan lady on our show, because I don't think people, until they, and I would love to show some of the video footage. Catherine, you've seen it, how the police, she invited the police when they came knocking on her door, and it was because she was homeschooling her kids. But they had it all set up, because it took a matter of a minute or two for him to call the CPS worker to come take the kids. She was there right away. You could see how they worked together, and they were used to doing this. You know, ma'am, calm down. We've seen it before. This is their wordage. Ma'am, calm down. We're only trying to help you. We're trying to help the children. Ma'am, calm down. Calm down. We don't want you to get excited. And then it's, calm down. You know, that next thing you know, you're in handcuffs. Because you asked them not to shout in their house. The kids are freaking out. They're taken out of the house, and you never see your kids again, because they terminate your parental rights. They throw you in a house, saying you must be crazy to yell at a police officer and tell him not to shout at you in your house. You must be crazy to only paint half your wall and not finish it. We're taking your kids. You think I'm kidding? I'm going to bring this lady on the show. I'm going to see if she'll come on next week. I think she will. And
the problem is with her, and I know who you're referring to, you know, and like so many, and this is the reason, if you look at our website, OCCR2021.com, you will see that we don't have any child trafficking cases there. Well, not CPS child trafficking cases. And there's a reason for that. And that is that I believe what it is, and because I see it over and over and over and over and over. Same deal with people whose elderly parents are being seized and trafficked and their assets stolen. And that is that the left behind victim, the parent or the loved one is so traumatized they can't think straight anymore.
Yeah,
Added
exactly.
to that, maybe they're taking, a prescribed, antidepressant, this or that. And I've tried with people who are not even that traumatized, but it's on steroids when you deal with someone who has a little bit of, pharmaceutical poisoning, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of victim thinking. They were abused as children too. They think it's normal to be a victim. They think it's normal that they can't live their lives unless Big Brother tells them how to do it. And they think that they have to have permission basically to breathe. And so it's difficult to make that paradigm shift in thinking that they aren't your boss. And maybe at this stage of the game, all we can do.
But it's hard. It's hard. It is hard because they're armed with guns, and many of them, and
That's very intimidating.
It's very intimidating, but if you have faith in God and that what you're doing is right, which it is, you're not harming your child, then you will do what's right and let the chips fall where they may. And it's hard. It's very hard. But you have to know that if you play Satan's game, it's going to get worse.
Oh, yeah.
Guaranteed. Guaranteed.
And Satan will come to you, with the pretty promises and the plea bargain offers, and you'll get your child back if you do this, or maybe you can file this. This sounds good. Satan always comes to you with promises, empty promises, and a shiny little package with a lot of hope, and it's all a lie.
Hopium.
It just gets worse.
Well, I was just going to interject that the Greek word for sorcery is pharmacia.
Yep.
Right,
and that it says in the book of Revelation, chapter 18, that they have used sorcery to deceive the world.
Yes.
And the word is pharmacia.
Yeah, it's a Greek term, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it's a Greek word.
Yeah. So that's why, I mean, if we're going to defeat these people, we're going to have to be healthy in mind and body and spirit. And we cannot be, there's some things we can't avoid, but, there are some things that we can. And they're pharmaceutical products. We generally can. You'll find, and I spoke with a man earlier, and he's 61 years old. He told me he's on his 8th heart attack. Okay.
Oh gosh.
And he knows a lot about the hoax, but he can see it in the legal system, but he can't see it in the medical system. He's taken, this and that and the other thing, and he thinks he has to because the doctor said to. Mm-hmm. If it isn't the doctor telling you what to do, it's the lawyer telling you what to do.
Yeah, and they get very indignant if you tell them you don't want their services.
Right.
If you say, I'm not going to take that, they get very angry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had a friend, she was an advocate, and her father went to this physician, and he had glaucoma, and he was able to keep it under control with marijuana. And probably can't say that word either, but anyway, I did. And he didn't bother to get, the medicalized version of it. But it was keeping his glaucoma under control. Well, the physician was checking the THC levels, I guess, in his system, and he decided, no, you better not, you better stop that right now, or I won't be your doctor anymore.
Mm.
So the man stopped the stop smoking the
What
weed.
stop? Yeah, stop doing what's fixing your problem. Stop.
Right. Stop doing that.
We
And
need
he
to
went
get
blind.
we need to get paid for anything that's fixing your illness. We need money for anything.
Right.
We've got something for you.
You know, all the witch hunts over in Europe, those women were herbal healers.
Yes, they were, weren't they?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they were killed
like
because they wanted to eliminate them, so that then you have to take their drugs.
Yeah. What's that? I'm sorry. What's that verse in the Bible that says that God has provided us with everything we need for our healing?
Oh yeah, the herbs.
Yeah, everything.
Noah had a book with him of all the herbs and all the effects and all the directions for instructions on how to heal people with herbs.
It's all in the Bible. It is all of it.
They don't. The King James, I don't think, has a lot of detail on it. Are you referring to another one of the forbidden books from the Bible that we don't normally get to see?
Well, it is in the book of Jasher. It says that Noah was given a book with listed all the herbs and what their effects were for healing.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah, and all those women that were killed in the witch hunts, well, most of them, were herbal healers.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, they want to get rid of vitamin supplements.
They've been working on that a long time, haven't they? With the Fraud and Death Administration.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I just go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm just saying that they're still available, but they're trying to ban them. So we don't even have vitamin supplements.
Or one of the things I've noticed is that they are putting magnesium stearate as a filler in a lot of these supplements, herbal supplements and others. And magnesium stearate causes kidney damage. So you might be taking something good, but you're also taking something bad.
Yeah, well, everything is so polluted. The air is polluted. The water's polluted. The food is polluted.
Yeah.
So there's unhealthy elements everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I got my ancient minerals, Catherine, today.
Oh, good.
I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, those are good for you.
Yeah.
And they really work well just used topically. You don't even have to ingest them.
Yeah, I got the topical one. I already started trying it. You know, there's another story that came out this year, and I'm sure that you've both heard of it. And I mean, I'm so disgusted and sad for the people who have allowed this to happen. But then again, as we know, this is done. I mean, these things are done on purpose and for a reason. And you heard the story of the gay couple that not only molested, they were given, allowed to adopt these two little boys. Not only did they molest children, they took photos of themselves molesting and doing things to the children, and sold the children, you know, every day or to this guy, and then would sell them for a little while to that guy, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and use them for child. Oh my God, you know.
Love is love. That's what they say.
That's what Obama said.
Oh my God.
Mm.
Look at this. I can't even say this. Another guy says that one of the adopted fathers sent him multiple messages on Snapchat, including one that allegedly read, "I'm going to F my son tonight. Stand by," along with images of himself sexually abusing the 11-year-old boy. Oh
That's a whole nother aspect that's just disgusting.
the boys were in
They're
third
really,
and fourth grade when they're, oh my God. These these kids will never be okay.
No,
They won't.
no.
Oh God.
and they
I,
think if you think there's something wrong with them, then there's something wrong with you.
The government worker admitted to forcing one of his sons to perform oral sex on him. Oh my God.
Well, that's absolute madness. They have madness of mind.
well, is it madness or pure evil?
It's planned. It's what it is. You know, because
It's a curse.
uh,
It's a
it,
curse
it,
on them.
well, what it is, in my opinion, we all know. And Catherine, you started out with this verse in the beginning about the millstone. It's better, uh, uh, you know, that you take a millstone and be dropped into the depths of the sea before for anybody who hurts one of God's children. And Satan knows how dear and close children are to the Lord, our Father Jesus Christ. And this is what brings him joy. Okay, to hurt what is closest to God's heart, which are the children. So he'll do everything to hurt the children, kill the children, change the sex of the children. And it's just getting worse every day. It's getting worse.
Well, you know, in Revelation 12, who defeats Satan is Michael and his angels. Cast them out, and then you'll have salvation and the kingdom of God on earth as it is in heaven.
While we're in this world, evil though it is, how do we cast them out?
You just don't have anything to do with them.
Right.
Here's a comment from one of our YouTube viewers tonight.
Okay. Thank you, Pablo. Yes. And how are we going to get to that point?
Exactly.
We certainly can't count on their fake tribunals they call courts to do it. We know that. So we're going to have to do it ourselves, and that's what this broadcast is about. Is the solution is to abide by what God told us to do in Genesis 1:26, to self-govern, to take care of this, of his creation. And how are we going to do that if we don't prosecute these people? And we have a tradition of common law grand juries, 25 people in a common law grand jury. For whatever reason, their fake grand juries never have 25 in them. Our common law courts and then our common law committees of safety, like a neighborhood watch. We have got to defend our families and our neighborhoods and our communities, and not just be too frightened to do that.
Especially our children. You know, I mean,
they need to be exposed because there's too much
Well,
cover up. They've been covering it up themselves. They've got too many people covering for them. They need to be exposed. If you
they're bragging about it now.
Yeah, they are. They are.
If people,
At every level, how many people in just Ohio, because it's happening in many states. I'm sorry, Catherine. And just recently, another guy was released from prison after doing something like 20 years in prison, got a second trial, and was released and found that he never committed the crime which he was jailed for. And they found that the prosecutor withheld evidence, exculpatory evidence from his first trial that would have proved that he was innocent. We have prosecutors that are going in that have evidence that is proving that the defendant did not commit a crime, and the prosecutors are hiding that evidence, and people are going to prison for 20, 30, 40 years before they get out and allowed a second trial. And then it's found that the prosecutor had evidence from the beginning that proved them innocent. I want to know why these prosecutors aren't in prison. I want to know why taxpayers are paying at sometimes the person that finally gets out, even though their whole life is destroyed. They couldn't raise their kids. They lost their whole 40 years of their life. They may get a couple $1 million, which the taxpayers are paying. But what about the person who held that evidence that could have freed them? Why isn't that person, that living, breathing person, in jail? And
the living, breathing man.
Exactly.
He was acting as a person when he did it. He's got immunity as a person. That's why.
Until that starts happening, people are going to continue going to jail, spending decades in jail.
We're not talking about prosecution of the innocent. We're talking about why they don't prosecute the guilty and what we can do about it. They will never prosecute the guilty.
Taking bribes.
Yes, that's part of it. And because they themselves are buddies with the guilty. They like what the guilty are doing.
That too.
Yes.
And they make money from what the guilty are doing. So that's not going to happen. We are going to have to do it ourselves.
It's organized crime.
Yes, it is organized crime. People are committing that crime, and we have to take them on one by one by one by one. And it's not quite as arduous as it may seem. If we go back to that notice, we can do everything by notices, and they will not deny what we've said. So at the end of the 3-notice process that Jesus tells us to do in Matthew 18, I think it is, we have established what the facts are. And so what's holding us back? Are we afraid of the child molesters? Are we too frightened to prosecute them? It sure sounds like it.
That is a weapon of Satan to cause you to fear.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
But, that's why I think that it's important that we operate in groups, and it's traditional to have a 12-member court, as Christ had 12 apostles. And we are doing nothing but implementing usually the law of the Bible, and oftentimes what even the demons have admitted is the law in their system.
The law says if you see a crime being committed and you don't say anything, then you are just as guilty as the perpetrator.
Right.
And if you give false witness against someone, then what you would have caused to that person will be done to you.
Yes. And if those who lead into captivity they will go.
That's right. And if you judge without mercy, you will be judged without mercy.
Yes. Well, that's why none of us deserve, any mercy, but it, if we
God
can
is
escape
a
judgment by the grace of God.
well, the
But
judgment is God's, and He is a righteous judge,
hmm
and He will punish all this. And
particularly,
Satan,
I mean, none of these people have Jesus in their lives as
that's
their.
right. We are living in a godless society, and that's why there's no love, there's no mercy, there's no
No.
concern. There's just violence and in a terrible situation. The
Violence
people
and
in
hedonism. Yeah.
yeah, the people in power are criminals. The church and the state, all of them.
Exactly.
The people in the high
Exactly.
places. You know, it
And
says
the people in the low places who keep them there.
we don't war with flesh and blood. That's
hmm
people. We war with principalities and people in high places. Spiritual wickedness in high places. And I'm telling you, their time is up.
Well, what are we supposed to do? Sit around and eat Cheetos until, it's all taken care of by the
No.
Almighty?
Yeah,
You
we're
know, there's
doing.
a stone that hits that. I've told you that image in Daniel 2. All those empires will be brought to an end all together when that stone hits that image on the feet, because they are a house divided against themselves, and they cannot stand.
So, but it sounds like we don't have to do anything except watch.
We have to expose them, not be afraid of them,
hmm
stand up to them and expose the root of this evil tree, and it will die.
I
Just like
think, but we have to administer that which we've been given to administer. We've been given dominion, and if we love the Lord, we're going to accept the gift and the responsibility that goes with it. And we're
well,
not doing that.
Adam was given dominion. Adam
hmm
was created in the image of God,
hmm
and he was a shadow of Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is in the image of God,
hmm
and he has been given dominion.
Well, we were all given dominion too, weren't we? In Genesis 1:26,
No,
over what is in our zone of influence, the parts of His creation that are within our ability to have dominion over.
And if I could just add, and in Genesis 1:26, it does say, and God said, let us make man in our own image after our likeness, and let them. He doesn't let
he made
him.
them male and female.
hmm
He
hmm
created Adam
But
or man, male and female created he them. And they were given dominion over the Garden of Eden. And
well,
they were given,
that was God's creation. I mean, at the time, that was sort of kind of a metaphor, wasn't it, for all
but,
of creation? The fish in the sea, everything was created by God.
well, those are people. The fish and the birds and the four-footed beast, those are references of people.
Mhm.
References of what people?
But those trees, God told Adam, don't eat from this tree of the
Mhm.
knowledge of good and evil. And he disobeyed God, and he
Mhm.
ate the tree, and he got cast out of the garden.
Mhm.
So that tree of life has not been available to man from then until now. But now it is being made available
What
to
do you find the tree of life? That's different than the tree of the knowledge of good and evil?
Yes.
Okay. And
Jesus
what
is the tree of life. The wisdom of God is a tree of
Right.
life.
Right.
And so we need to be eating from that tree and
All right.
learning
And that's what I'm doing.
the
Jesus
understanding
told
of
us
God.
how to deal with disputes among our fellow man. I have a dispute with the pedophile down the street, and he told me exactly how to deal with that. I come to him and in honor, and if he does, I can get him to repent. Then I have gained a brother. If I can't, then I bring the church with me, and if I still can't, then the third time I bring him before the entire church, and am I entitled to deal with him as I would the pagans. That's from Jesus.
Mm-hmm. He does instruct us how to deal with these people in a certain manner, which is not to take them. He literally says not to take them into the court,
because he calls it the courts of the unjust.
Exactly.
Right.
So why
But
would
he
you
also
go?
talked about assemblies, the lawful assemblies in a positive manner. I think that's Old Testament stuff.
Well, we can't just shoo away the Old Testament. There's
The Old Testament is a great treasure.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely.
The Word of God is a treasure.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just don't think that we can just sit around and wait for Jesus to come and fix it all. I think more is expected of us. If you love me, you will keep my commandments.
That's right.
You had mentioned at one time, Gloria, about the no trespassing signs, which is one way of keeping them at bay.
Mm-hmm.
And another one that has a pretty old tradition is the castle doctrine. And that's comes from the Middle Ages. A man's home is his castle. And I believe people should be posting that as well. And people do post castle doctrine signs on their land, and that tells any who would come onto their land without permission that you intend to and you have the right to defend your land with the use of deadly force if need be.
Yeah, I was, but then
and
again,
that is mirrored in their fake statutes as well, although in a dumbed down manner.
Yeah. There is some case law that I was looking through where you have to be according to them, be very careful with using that castle doctrine, because if that person doesn't have a foot in your home and is just standing out in your yard, you can't use deadly force. You could put signs and charge them for trespassing, but you can't use deadly force.
Right.
But once they step into your home or your vehicle, then you can use deadly force in this state.
According to Ohio Revised Code 2901.09, a person who lawfully is in that person, of course it applies to persons, in that person's residence has no duty to retreat before using force in self-defense, defense of another, or defense of that person's residence.
Mm-hmm.
And a person who lawfully is an occupant of that person's vehicle, or who lawfully is an occupant in a vehicle owned by an immediate family member, of the person has no duty to retreat before using force in self-defense of another. And that's the dumbed down version in their statutes and codes. The common law version is the people who are domiciled on this part of the landmass known as whatever it is are protected by the common law castle doctrine and therefore have the right to defend themselves, their home, their property, conveyance, their family members, and their guests by the use of any means of self-defense, including without limitation the use of deadly force. We, the people, are not required to retreat when attacked in our homes or on our lands. And of course, you have to use those things wisely. And that's why notice is so important. And Jesus told us that in Matthew, that would be, oh, you found it. Okay. Yeah, and it's certainly more than they give us, but we have to provide them with notice of what our position is, that we are not going to be their victims, and that there will be consequences for their bad behavior, and these are what they are. And and that's the purpose of our other notices too, is to establish this is our position. Don't say that you weren't notified. And when you give them an opportunity to dispute what you're saying and they don't take that opportunity, then they have forfeited any of the rights that they might otherwise have. There's and this is true in the common law world, in biblically, and it's true in their commercial statutes. Yeah, okay. And this is in the world of people who live under the word of the Almighty God, unrebutted notices stand as truth. If they don't rebut your sworn statement, then, and this is 1 Peter 1:25, Hebrews 6, verses 13 to 15, and Matthew 18, verses 15 through 17. In their world, the Uniform Commercial Code, section 1202, admits that once they receive a notice, and then they have knowledge. They have knowledge of what the rights are that you are asserting and what the facts are. And they have an opportunity to dispute those facts. But if the facts are sworn to under penalty of perjury, they also admit in their world that the sworn statement, after giving the other side an opportunity to rebut it, is proof. And according to their filthy Roman civil law, qui non negat facetur, he who does not deny agrees. If I say state under oath and serve you with a notice that you committed acts of child abuse on such and such a day to such and such a victim, and you don't rebut that, then you have admitted it in their world, as well as according to the word of Jesus in the New Testament. There's no way around it. So a man or woman who would be innocent of that would certainly dispute it.
Correct. If you're being charged with something you never did, you're
not going to just stay silent.
Right. Who would stay silent and say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? You can't, that's defamatory. You're ruining my reputation. What are you saying? I committed this felony and I did this to this child and allowed this to happen. Wouldn't you want to go after that person and say, for at least libel and slandering your name?
Now, I understand that when Jesus was brought before Pilate and he was accused of I don't know what he was accused of, blasphemy, or what did they even have? Well, Pilate accused him of being king of the Jews, and not that would have been a crime, I don't think, or an
That would have been a
offense.
threat to Caesar.
Okay, it would have been
They saw him as a threat to Caesar.
in their world. It's certainly not a sin, but an offense. And he didn't feel the need to defend himself because they didn't have any authority over him. My kingdom's not of this world. So
that's right.
What do I care?
So don't get caught up in the sufferings of this world.
That's right.
That day will come upon you in unawares.
Mm-hmm.
But this is different. When you're accused of actual crimes that are morally reprehensible, that are sin, any way you slice it, it's a sin. Then yes, you are under an obligation to set the record straight. Don't let the lie stand. If it is a lie, it's not a lie, then I guess you're going to stay silent, aren't you? And that's what.
Well, if you look at his trial, he didn't say anything to him.
No, he didn't.
He did
because
not rebut them.
He did not, but he was not accused of anything morally wrong either. So there was no obligation to. He was only accused of stupid stuff that was part of their.
But he got the death penalty for it.
Yes, yeah, that's.
But that had to happen. You know, I mean,
that had to happen.
That had
he
to happen.
Did that as an example.
That was an example of how we would deal with what if they come up on us and with. It's an offense to spit on the sidewalk. It's one of our offenses, and we consider it a hanging offense. They have no authority to make it anything. They have no authority to do any of that. Now, if they come to us and say, you murdered a man, you raped a child, that's a matter that has significance between us and the Lord. And I think we have to address what the truth is and not let the lie stand. And that's not what Jesus was facing when he was accused of being king of the Jews. That was just one of their little idiosyncrasies in their system. Why dignify that with a response? I get that. That's different than being accused of something morally wrong. So that's how I see it.
And we're almost on 2 hours here, so.
Yeah, okay, all right, yeah. I didn't realize we were going to go so long, but.
Oh, we could keep going on for hours, but yeah, I have to work tomorrow. I have to work tomorrow.
I was surprised we didn't have more people on, but anyway, maybe they've taken to watching it the next day. But
yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for another.
Thank you, Catherine and Gloria.
Thank you, Luciana. Yeah.
We'll
you pulled it all together for us, as always, Luciana. Thank you.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And we will continue this battle next Thursday at 9 o'clock.
Next Thursday.
All right.
All right.
Ladies, have a great evening. And everyone out there, have a great evening. Thank you.
You too.